Well, welcome back to my channel, everyone. Nice to have you today. I'm here today really to photograph just before sunset these trees that you're seeing in front of us here. Now they're just dead sticks in the water. Sunset today is going to be boring. This is where the sun, and you can see it's just glaring there in front of me there. Hardly any clouds in the sky, so sunset's going to be a waste of time shooting towards the sun. A bit later on, I'm going to be taking some photos of these trees with the sun just above the horizon, and it's going to give a beautiful golden glow to these trees. But that's for the next video, so stay tuned for that one. Right now, I want to show you how to use ND filters. The 6-stop, the 10-stop, the 15-stop, and I'm going to give you some handy hints on how to get the most out of your photos. The tricks to make sure that your camera is set correctly, and if you're shooting in JPEG instead of RAW, the pitfalls that can happen if you're shooting in auto white balance. Kit today, my Nikon D500, my Nikon 18-140mm lens. You can see I've already put a spacer ring. So the first filter we're going to use is a 6-stop Hader ND filter. Now I've seen people, this is a filter holder, and this is what some people do. They have it all set up like this, make sure it's nicely locked in. They will slot in the filter with the filter holder connected. I find that puts a lot of strain on the front, and sometimes it actually changes your composition. Now, 6-stop filter, it's not a big deal. You can easily recompose. You can see through the LCD screen here or your viewfinder. But if you're using a 10 or 15 stop, depending on the time of the day, you're not going to be able to see through, and you might have stuffed up your composition. I prefer to take it off and do this. Now, you saw my little lug here was to my right. Nearly all filters have the writing on the filter here, and it tells you what they are. And this one says it's a 6-stop, so I slot it in, and you'll find anything normally above a 6-stop ND filter has a gauze around there. That's to stop light leak. So you put it on. I like looking at the back here, and I slide it in until I can't see any light. Now, like I said, a 6-stop, it's not a big deal, but a 10 and a 15 stop, I will show you, it can be a big deal. Now, before I put it on here, what I'm going to do is show you the comparison, how we set up the camera to show you how much light we lose. At the moment, my camera is set in manual mode, but what I will do, I will put it in aperture priority. Now, a lot of people, they like shooting in aperture priority, and that's fine during the day if you're not using filters, because the problem is once you put a filter on, a lot of the time it gets dark and the camera gets confused, the metering gets confused. So it's best to shoot in manual mode. But we'll put in our aperture priority. Now my camera's set up, it's on sunny or daylight white balance. This is something that you have to be very mindful of. If your camera can support kelvins, like manual white balance, then choose your white balance manually. I don't recommend that you use auto white balance because some of these filters have got a color cast. If you're using auto white balance, it might affect it. So I prefer to use sunny. If I don't like sunny, I will choose cloudy, shade, but this is to show you that it's good to select a dedicated white balance. So we're going to take one shot here. This will just give us our bearing. This looks quite nice, and I'm looking at my histogram here. It's showing I'm really underexposed. I'm at 1/250th of a second. What I'm going to do is I'll increase it by 0.7. We'll take another stop. Now I've got 2-second timer delay on here. That looks much better. Make sure my highlights aren't blown. Beautiful. Okay, so now we'll put it on. We won't adjust any setting. So you've seen the photo. Now we'll take another one here. Can you see it? Like, it's just so dark. And if I look at my histogram here, wow, I'm like at least 4 stops underexposed. This is why you don't use aperture priority or shutter priority for that matter. We'll go back to manual mode. My camera settings were ISO 100, f11, and my shutter speed here is telling me 1/160th of a second. So we'll take a photo. That's it. Looks beautiful. Now we put it on. But how do we know how much to set our shutter speed for? This is where apps come in. So I'm using the Lee Big Stopper app. So it has the 6, the 10, and the 15. So my settings here is 1/160th of a second, and I've got a 6-stop. So I click 6-stop, and I rotate around to 1/160th, and it's telling me 0.4 of a second. So all I do is I just rotate it around, 0.4 of a second. Take a photo. Perfect. So this is the one without the ND filter. This is our first shot, and this is the one that I've just taken now. The aperture is correct. We've lost 6 stops of light. What I want is to really get these trees and that beautiful reflection in the water. Then I'd really want a 10 or 15 stop filter. Let's put the 10 stop filter on. Put it on. The light hasn't changed at all, so we just go to 10 stop now. And now it's telling me 6 seconds. We just bring it back round, 6 seconds, we take a photo. Now this is something that you have to be very mindful of when you're taking photos. At this time of the day, we don't get too much light variation. If you were doing this, let's say the latter part of the day, near sunset, your light is going to be fading. It might say 6 seconds, but you've got to use some intuition that if light is fading very quickly, we're in the middle of winter here, even though it's a very warm day. So light is going to fade very quickly around sunset. So if I was shooting this just before sunset, I would have to count that 6 seconds might turn into 10 seconds. If I left it alone, I would get a very dark image. So let's quickly take a look. This is the one without a filter. This is with the 6 stop filter. Now, this is with the 10 stop. Can you notice that the 10 stop has got a huge amount of color cast? It's very blue. I've talked about K&F filters before. Some people say they don't have color cast. That's not what I've found. I have found that they've got color cast and they pull to the blue. But if you're shooting in RAW, that is not a big deal because you can easily adjust that in post-processing. Now, let's put the 15 stop ND filter on. Before we do that, I don't know if you've noticed something, that there's something here that I haven't done. And many people fall into the trap. I fall into it sometimes. Now, I don't have a camera strap here, but if you've got a camera strap with your camera, on there, there's like a little slot that you can cover your viewfinder here. Especially during the day, if you're doing long exposures, you've got to cover the viewfinder. Now, on my D500, I don't need the cover. I've got a little slot here. Now, what I've done is just a little flick the switch here. Now my viewfinder is closed and we'll take another photo. Wow, look at that. Now if we go back, can you see the difference? The first one looked very hazy. So now we'll put the 15 stop on. We'll take a photo with the screen blacked out. Then we'll open the screen up, the viewfinder, and you'll really see the difference. I'm going to go back to 1/160th and just make sure that because the sun's just gone down a little bit, that we've still got the correct aperture. Beautiful, that's good. So now we'll put this one on, make sure that I'm nicely locked in, because believe me, this has happened to me before. I've lost a filter like this. These teeth here that hook on are so small that you have to be very careful. It might look like they're on, but they mightn't be properly connected. That's it. So now we get our app back and we're at 1/160th. Now we want 15. Look at that, 3 minutes and 20 seconds. I've also got my timer here. I'm going to set 3 minutes and 20 seconds. There, set. Now there's still a 2-second on there, so that's still pretty good. Click it. Another mistake, better stop. My camera only goes to 30 seconds here, and I'm set at 1/60th. So what I have to do now, we'll make mistakes, but I'm showing you that sometimes we just talk, we lose track. So now what I have to do is I have to go into bulb mode. If you don't put in bulb mode, and let's say like here, 3 minutes, 20 seconds, and your real aperture set on the camera was 20 seconds, it'll keep taking 20-second photos until the timer runs out at 3 minutes, 20 seconds. That's it. Let's rock. The next one, the one that I'm going to take without the viewfinder closed in, instead of going for another 3 minutes and 20 seconds, I'm going to increase my ISO to ISO 200. Really, I don't need 3 minutes and 20 seconds to smooth it out. But for this test, I want to show you how much light we lose. If the light changes during our exposure, what happens? Instead of 3 minutes 20 seconds at ISO 100, if I went to ISO 200, I'm letting in twice the amount of light. So because I'm letting in twice the amount of light, I have to divide my shutter speed by half. So instead of 3 minutes and 20 seconds, so 1 minute and 40 seconds, and I'd have the same exposure as this one. 3 minutes, 20 seconds is finished. Look at that. This is without any filter on. This is 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Look at it, just smoothed out, just beautiful. This is why I love doing long exposures. If I want that dreamy look, filters look great. Quickly, we'll open up the viewfinder here. We'll go to ISO 200. Now, what I want is 1 minute and 40 seconds. There, set, let's go. Now, something that I normally do if I'm using ND filters, when I'm out and about is I use a polarizing filter. Today, I'm not using a polarizing filter because the polarizing filter would change the dynamics of this test. So this is the 15 stop with the viewfinder closed. This is with the viewfinder open. Can you see like all that haze there? You will not get rid of that in post-processing. No way in the world. If that's happened to you, then quickly reset up, block your viewfinder out and take another shot, because that shot is a waste. So you've seen all the JPEGs that I've taken. This is the raw file of the image that I took with the 15 stop ND filter edited in Adobe Lightroom. It looks great. This is really why you should shoot in RAW when you're using ND filters. So if this video has been of help to you understanding how to use ND filters, give me a big thumbs up. So enjoy your photography, and I'll see you next time.